Hello, and thank you very much for all the feedback on the conversations to date. Some great memories and stories of the festivals, the plays, and the shows from Newry Town Hall, the Arts Centre, and the Parochial Hall. My guest today is Chairman of Newpoint Players, Donal O'Hanlon, and Donal has been building up a chronicle of Newpoint Players over the last 75 years. The notes recall that the first meeting of the Warrenpoint Dramatic Society was the 9th of November 1945. The chair was Mr. Jerry Hughes, the secretary Mr. Jim Murphy, and producer Mr. L. Armstrong. And at the second meeting, they changed the name to the Newpoint Dramatic Society. And so began a story of 75 years of drama between Newry, Warrenpoint, and the wider area. You probably know Donal as an actor. He's also an accomplished musician, a singer, and maybe a less accomplished dancer. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Chairman of Newpoint Players, Donal O'Hanlon.
Oh, fab, Paul.
How did I know that might be the opening line? Donal, I first saw you on stage in that great production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that won the Ulster Festival. It was a powerful show in its day, and people still talk about it as one of their favourite Newpoint shows. What was it like to be in that at the time and feel it was something that was pushing the boundaries a bit?
Sure, we were utterly mad, as was befitting all the people of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We had great fun rehearsing it, as always, in some of the most mold-filled rooms in Newry we often rehearsed in, because Sean Hollywood didn't like anybody getting soft. We took it around the country and it was so well received. I have to give you one of my most favourite lines in any play comes from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was one of the inmates saying, "We are the psychoceramics, the cracked pots of humanity." And it was full of wonderful lines like that. And of course, Sean had to direct and be the star. He was McMurphy as well. I mercifully didn't have too many lines because I was the big Indian.
Yeah, yeah.
We called it the FBI, the friggin' big Indian. And you hear my thoughts for the most part and only speak a couple of lines at the end. But we brought in some wonderful characters. I remember Shifa O'Reilly and her ma, God rest her, doing the set. And it was, there's no time you can say that Newpoint were at our best because we keep reinventing ourselves, but it was a very good time in Newpoint.
It and as a production, I mean, I remember when you said you're the big chief, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a control room at the back of the stage
Yep.
where Nurse Ratchet overlooked all of the inmates. But at one stage, you went up and ripped out the console,
The
and it
black box.
exploded, and there was flashes and sparks and everything coming out of it. And I remember
Yes.
sitting there being wowed by this, and that how did that happen? A wee bit
So
of
they wouldn't let you do
pioneering.
that. They wouldn't let you do that now, would they? I think
Health
Jim
and
McGann
safety.
was in charge of the fireworks at the time. And we, no doubt, well, I don't think there were too many laws about it, but had there been, we would have broken them all. So this, as you say, had to be ripped out and thrown through the windows. And this was symbolic of us. The chief escapes, leaving the poor, demented McMurphy behind. And so he is freed by proxy.
Donald, was there New Point before Cuckoo's Nest for you?
Uh, yes, my first show, because I've just been checking up, I've got them all on the screen behind this, Declan. I can go and check. My first show was 79, Habeas Corpus, with I think Sean Kearns was in that as well. Newpoint hung up their theatrical drawers, shall we say, from 71 to 76, and then made a couple of efforts to have shows from 76, 77, 78. But things changed and personalities changed. And by 79, the new people were installed, which was mainly Sean Hollywood. So we moved from a time when there were loads of committee meetings, very few shows, to
Hmm.
loads of shows and very few committee meetings.
I remember Cuckoo's Nest, and then that was closely followed by John Paul, Ringo, George, and Bert. Uh,
Didn't we have great times with that?
wasn't it? That was brilliant.
Oh,
That was a brilliant show.
yeah. And you can't do the show anymore. It all happened whenever Michael Jackson bought the rights to the Beatles' music. It killed it stone dead. We tried to do it with the youth group once again, because it's a bit like Bosco doing Superstar. You really can bring it back. There'll
Yeah.
always be a new
Yeah.
audience. But the purchase generally screwed up the show being available, and it was just taken off the books.
You sent me through some pictures. Thanks very much indeed. There's a photo of a school show, and I couldn't work out which one was you in the midst of it all. Was
Well,
that
look for
Yeoman?
the ears, Churchill ears. I had very large ears at that time, and I was a yeoman in Yeoman of the Guard. I did that in Violet Hill, and I also did the student prince over in the Abbey. So the Gilbert and Sullivans were all we had the opportunity to do in those days. And like the young buck I had a certain contempt for Gilbert and Sullivan, but I think they're wonderful now, of course.
You went from school into teacher training.
I did. I went to what they called the ranch
The ranch.
in Belfast. So I did in those days what was called the old Cert Ed. I did that in maths, and then went back at nights because I left my education too late. I went back at nights and did a degree in drama, and then I was always a bit of a geek, so and did the MSc in computing then, and I did a couple of other things. Then I left it. I wouldn't please them at school to do the bloody stuff for them, so I had to do it the hard way whenever I left school.
You did all right. And the degree in drama, that give you opportunities to perform in shows within the course.
It did indeed, but of course, Ray Jeffries got wind of it at one stage, and he said, "Come on, O'Hanlon, you and your degree in drama, you can do a bit better than that, darling."
In your younger years, were you ever involved in the fish?
I did one thing in the fish when I was a very small young fellow with Miss Ethel. It's something about count your cherry stones, blah blah blah, and I don't think I was quite ready at that stage, Declan, because it was in one of those categories with 154 trombones, and I didn't take to it then. But I know Hollywood put me in for the fish later on for public speaking things, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So I got the mojo back again, I think, at that stage. Hollywood, of course.
I can see over your shoulder a guitar there, and you were a musician in your time as well. I think you appeared on RTE. And
I was in a band called Raggernia with you probably have a picture there with Mairead Mooney and her Frankie Kennedy, her late husband, wonderful guy, Frankie, the flute player, and Mairead's brother Garage. And we did that. We toured around Scotland, and we did, as you say, some RTE stuff. We were doing very, very well. And then around 1980, when Emma came along, I pulled out of it, left it, and then they brought in a new guitarist, and they changed their name then to Alton because it was a better name than Raggernia. And Alton, as you know, are still doing very, very well.
you were able to weave that talent as a musician through the shows as well. You know, in John Paul, Ringo, George and Bert, you were part of the band too. You were for Our Day Out for the youth group, and we'll talk a little bit more about the youth group, but you know, you were providing the music for that too. And music's been an important part of Newpoint as well.
No, we don't look for musicals. We look for plays with music. And I think the epitome of that is Blood Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a musical, no matter what anybody will say. It's a standalone drama without the music at all. So we look for shows we can bring the music into. And Sean Traynor is very particular about that, about bringing music in. So when we did Frankenstein, I was the old blind guy, and he had me singing the Our Father in German, of all things. And even one of the most recent ones, when we did The Red Barn, I was a gypsy, and actually bought this gypsy guitar for it, for that purpose. So yeah, Sean likes to weave that in, and I'm delighted to get a chance to play on stage when I can. May you never lay your head down without a hand to hold. May you never make your bed up in the cold. 'Cause you're just like a big strong brother to me. You know that I love you true. You don't talk it dirty behind my back. I know that there are some that do. Please won't you bear it in mind? Love is a lesson to learn in our time. Please won't you bear it in mind for me? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. We opened the whole thing up with a prologue of a song by a Glaswegian guy that tells the entire story of Hamlet in about 3.5 minutes. So we look for opportunities.
And that's given opportunities for other people to show off their talents as well, who maybe aren't necessarily wanting to perform on stage.
People are generally in for a penny, in for a pound. If I'm going to be on the stage, I may as well just stretch what I'm doing and be mortified in another department as well as in the first. So yeah, they're always glad to come along and join in the music.
You spoke about the Cuckoo's Nest on the festival circuit, and Newpoint have played a really strong role in the festivals and provided really different plays to take onto a circuit that audiences wouldn't get to see.
I think we reached the pinnacle of that when we did Marat Sad, which was the assassination of Marat as performed by the inmates of the asylum of Saranton as directed by the Marquis de Sade, abbreviated to Marat Sad, which won the All Ireland, and we got to play for a week up in the Abbey, and we had more music in that. John Coyle and Mary McManus masterminded the music in it, and we all sang our whole way through it.
I think of Darkness at Noon as well. Sean worked
Oh,
hard to get the rights for Darkness at Noon.
Worked so hard for years, and then I can remember us playing to an audience of 5. That was in the first half. We're 4 in the second half. So you do these things, but Sean, it certainly scratched quite a significant itch where Sean was concerned to get that under. It was quite a feather in his cap.
This time last year, Newpoint was probably on stage with the festival show, and then the breaks went on everywhere. I think Sean Traynor had written the show for the festival circuit.
Sean Traynor had written his show about his a family member, a great aunt, and the amazing adventures of Mary Kay out in the States. So yeah, we were actually in Enniskillen. We'd just done a great show, got a great adjudication, which you don't always get, and we were heading off, and then word was coming in that they were considering cancelling the rest of the week, and they in fact did cancel. So we were playing right up to the mark when everything had to go. Man, we got through the summer with the kids. We managed to engineer that by rehearsing in the open air in small pods, groups, all fully tugged out, and then we put it on as a semi-live and semi-recorded video presentation.
Yeah,
so we kept the continuity.
That was looking at the opportunities you had and the talent you had to keep the youth group going.
Like the old fellows Newpoint, the young ones Newpoint, we tend to try to do a bit of a cycle. That say somebody is going to be 4 years in the youth group, if we're lucky, that they'll get to do maybe a Shakespeare, they'll get to do something musical, they'll get to do maybe a classic modern piece, and then just throw another one into the wash. So they always have a variety in their CV to show, but they're always as challenging as we can make them, and we take no prisoners. Nobody goes on to be, what the heck did Hollywood used to call it, a piece of furniture, or there are no spear holders in Newpoint. We try to make sure they're all significantly present in the moment.
And I think one of the things Sean championed in the day too was there wasn't a fee to sign up for the youth show.
We still hold that to this very day. Not one penny will the youngsters pay. Any parent who wants to make a voluntary contribution, that's grand, but we will not ask any youngsters for money, and because we want to make it open for all. The thought that there'd be some youngster who might have a bit of talent in them, and that for the sake of 50p a day or a quid a week, that they wouldn't actually come, that would be anathema.
Do you think it continues to achieve that early days ambition of being pioneering and bringing an opportunity to young people?
Very much so. And I should add that we're in the 40th year of the youth group and the 75th year of Owl Ones, the Owl Newpoint ones. And everything that goes on is still of a challenging nature. As to the opportunities, they're still going off. Thank God a lot more are now opting to do what you would call theatre science, the lighting and the set design and the costume design. And they're aware that it's not all about being a lovey on the stage, much as they enjoy it. They see the opportunities that are there.
You were saying there you have a complete listing of all the shows that you've been involved with.
I should have sent you the Chronicle. I have every show that we ever did. I know somebody will contradict me when I say that, but every show we ever did, who directed it, the year it was on. I have the snippets and the juicy bits from the minute books for all of those years. I'm just in the stage of putting the pictures in, and hopefully we can celebrate our 75th year with this Newpoint Chronicle. It's a pity the last year is a little bit thin, but otherwise it's, I think, 236, something like that.
Yeah, there was a time too when one acts were probably more popular than they are now, and I don't even know, is there a one act festival that runs
There are
even
a few of them.
in Ulster?
There are a few of them still about because they were easier for people to learn and to put on, and there was a tradition of very little set. As you know, Sean believed in you take a Bailey hay in the boot, and that's your set, no matter what
Yeah,
show you're doing.
yeah.
So they were also very popular, in particular over in Britain. As a result, you knew that if you qualified at one of the sessions here and got through to the British finals, there was going to be crack over in Scotland, Wales, or somewhere in England. So it's worth keeping a toe in there. We have the last, again, before this blighted year, we have had autumn one-act festivals that we run ourselves. And Ethna Bell, if you're looking at, I think was the last adjudicator of that. So many of the plays are written by the youngsters themselves. Good high quality drama. We're open to all. So we put on a night of about 4, 5, 6 one-act plays that are adjudicated, and just for ourselves to, it's an awful term, to blood new directors amongst the youngsters themselves.
If you look back over that list, Donal, then is there one part that you particularly would pick out and say that that was your favorite role out of them all?
Well, God forgive the ego of him, but I love doing the Bull McCabe, which Charlie Smith directed for us. He came back, and by God, I learned stuff during that show that I never knew before. Charlie, as from your interview with him, he absolutely is the master. Just the little nuances and the over the shoulder things without being coquettish or stages, you know.
Yeah.
He just taught you things that you hadn't been aware of. And as he'll say himself, most things you can't teach people, but there were certain tricks of the trade that Charlie um, put into a lot of us.
Charlie will always seek out, as you say, that that little look or that little move that just makes that brings that character to life. And you're very much the same. You know, you would never see Donal O'Hanlon in that character coming through. You always work hard to develop something that is so believable on stage.
It was very kind of you to say that. If it didn't, I'd be a monster, Declan. It's a way of just getting rid of all this terrible ego and keeping me sane. So I love getting stuck into something not controversial but different. And it's not a matter of playing for laughs. It's just about making your character significantly different.
Well, we said that we talked about the musician within you. We've talked about the actor, a bit about the singer. But if I throw you this line, and I'll take us on to the next section. Out there's a world outside of Yonkers.
Way out there beyond this hick town, Barnaby, there's a slick town, Barnaby. You're alluding to the best lit feat in Ireland, I would presume.
I am indeed.
I did 4 or 5 shows with the Musical Society, and again, such different things you learn there. I never considered myself a dancer, although I did recently win a Strictly Come Dancing thing, but that's another story. And I was in Hello Dolly, Irene with my great mate Declan Bell, and a couple of other shows. Myself and Jim Smith were in. We were the Backwoods Men in Showboat.
Well, I'm just looking at a photograph of you here and in Hello Dolly, and you're very dapper. Yourself and Tony Elmore. So the story behind the best lit feat in Ireland was when the show transferred to Waterford, you and Tony would come from the basement of the shop,
right.
stand on top of a trunk, look up and say, "Out there's a world out," and the lights would dim on the stage, and the two guys are in the follow spots. But unfortunately, in
Yep.
Waterford, the angle of the beam from the follow spots through the proscenium arch meant that when you stood
A
up,
bit like that.
a bit like that, yes, when you stood up, the follow spot couldn't hit you, and there was no way of communicating that the follow spot wasn't only lighting your feet. So it became the best
No.
lit feat in Ireland to that adjudicator.
And I
But as
hadn't
Sean said, don't listen to what the adjudicator says.
I know, and I hadn't the gumption to get down on my hunkers and go out there. Yeah.
One show that I suppose circumstances made it change and made it adapt and work in a different space was Murder in the Cathedral for the drama festival in Newry, and
Mm-hmm.
I think there was an industrial action or a strike on or
Was.
something like that, and it could only open part of the week, and
Mhm.
it was a mixed through the week. But Newpoint got permission to perform Murder in the Cathedral in Newry Cathedral for the drama
In your
festival.
cathedral. Yeah. It was it was a one day, one night strike. And as it happened, it hit upon our performance. It wasn't, I'm sure, planned that way. It just happened to coincide. And there is a magnificent extra stage that they have in the cathedral anyway. They take this thing out, and just from the level of the altar, it nestles into the steps going down and comes right out the front. So it's great. But of course, and as anybody who's ever sung in a church will know, you have this time lapse with the back and the organ, because we had a lot of music in it as well. So we had to cope with that sort of time lapse. Well, long and the short of it is we won the thing anyway. So it all worked.
So you say this year's 40 years of the youth group and 75 years of
Yeah.
Newpoint, and it's more than a foundation, really, to build on. But I think build and challenge. What challenges does Newpoint seek out over the next 10, 15, 20 years?
The challenge is always bringing on the next generation. And I think we're suffering in a way like the drama festival, in that we're all getting a bit older, and we need, while we have the youngsters, we need to bring more cohorts coming into the adult shows we do. And particularly at committee level, we need people to just step up and take an active role, because we'll all fall off the perch at some stage if we don't fall off the stage. And we need to just reinvigorate and constantly reinvent ourselves. Um, New plays. Sean Trainer has been magnificent, and he's written some spectacular plays, and we're delighted to do them. We have had other innovations. We've been working with Anthony Russell on some of his historical trials. He has put Podrick Pierce, the Orange Order, Thomas Darcy McGee from Carlingford, and Con O'Neill, the last of the Gaelic chiefs of Ireland. He's constructed these wonderful historical trials, where most of them are charged with treason. They are defended and tried by historical characters. I'm always John Mitchell, who's getting an awful kicking at the moment. And then the audience are the jury. And at the end, somebody is appointed from amongst them as a jury chairman. They lead a discussion on the evidence they have heard, and be an Anthony Russell, straight down the line, very well balanced. And then they vote as a jury on whether the person is guilty or innocent. And they're so fair to the point that we put this on in the Shankill Road Library, put Pierce on trial in the Shankill Road Library, and they let him off. We put the Orange Order on trial out in Hilltown, they let him off. So they're a great night. We've taken it to Canada, to Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. And so we've little innovations like that going all the time.
When I was young and I had no sense, I bought a wee fiddle for 18 pence, and all the tune that I could play was Cut the Loaf and It Away.